Okay, we are officially recording now. So again, good morning, everyone. I know that it's almost lunchtime. It's 11:30 Eastern. I want to thank everyone for joining me this morning. I know that it's definitely a trying time, and I want to applaud all of you for taking the time out of your day, out of your week to basically just I don't know if it's a refresher. I don't know if you're learning a new skill or a new tool, or just kind of being reminded about some of the resources that are available to you. But I do want to applaud you for taking the time and making a concerted effort to sharpen your tools. I know that right now we are all in panic mode, or we're all, just really focused on getting through. So I do want to again thank you for joining me and taking the time. I'm not going to keep the video on, but I don't know if you could see over my shoulder. I have a 9-year-old that's peeking in. She's been under very strict orders not to say anything, not to make any noise, not to bother me. Hopefully that holds true for the other one. I'm not sure if any of you are in the same boat that I am, but it's tough being mother, teacher, principal, trainer, employee, all of the above. I hear my printer has started, so someone's printing something. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my video. We're going to get started. Everyone is in listen only mode. If you have any questions, I will be able to answer questions during the session. We have a lot of content to go over today. I'm going to do my best to really simplify. Again, this session is designed for broker owners and managers, really as a high level overview of the RPR platform. I know many of you are going to be turning around, making resources and information available to your agents. So I want you to be familiar enough with RPR where you can answer their questions. But the primary premise is that you're familiar with what the value proposition of RPR is, and have resources to be able to share with your associates. So here's a real brief agenda of what we're covering today. We're going to start with what RPR is. That was incredibly important for me. 5.5 years ago when I started with RPR, to be able to simplify it kind of in that real short elevator pitch and make sense of what RPR is. We're going to change gears and focus on how RPR helps your agents. We'll switch gears one more time after that and focus on what we refer to as the broker tool set. These are the tools and the features and the components that have been made available for brokerages to take advantage of, to really benefit the company as a whole, as opposed to the individual agent, which are really the users of RPR. And then we'll have a formal Q&A session at the very end. Again, this webinar is being recorded. Again, we have a lot of content that we're going to cover, and we'll make this available for playback for everyone. So let's start with the question of the day. What is RPR? First of all, RPR stands for Realtors Property Resource. RPR is a wholly owned subsidiary technology company of the National Association of Realtors. In fact, this national database has been made available exclusively for realtors to just NAR members. In a nutshell, RPR is a national database. It's this ginormous database of over 170 million properties across the country, both residential and commercial. We've aggregated hundreds of sources of data at the parcel level for each of these properties so that you and your agents have the most comprehensive place to search and research properties. So again, think of this as this gigantic database of properties. Now, many of you are probably thinking to yourselves, why do we need another database? Why do we need another resource? We already have the MLS. We already have public records. We already have this. RPR is not meant to replace any of your existing resources. Think of it as a site, as a service, as a database that aggregates all of those resources under one roof. And with that, you have tools that help you be more efficient, save time, maybe even save money. This is very, very important from a broker standpoint. Maybe there are some tools and features within RPR that will help you eliminate costs from your company budget. So as we move through this presentation, just think about this as as augmenting those existing resources that you use. As I mentioned, it's for the exclusive use of Realtor members. RPR can be accessed either by visiting a website, which is www.narrpr.com, or it is fully accessible through a mobile app. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Many of the MLSs and individual boards have links to RPR. So there's a number of different ways that you can access the RPR platform. But again, it's both online based. It's also available through that mobile application. There's no additional charge. There's no additional charge to brokerages either. So when we get to the broker tools section, I know some of you are probably going to ask, how much will this cost me? This is entirely member benefit. And I think what's great about now is that, as you're reacclimating yourself and familiarizing yourself with resources that are available to you, this isn't something that costs you extra money. And a day and time where most of you are probably thinking of how to consolidate expenses or how to eliminate expenses, RPR is something that we want you all to take advantage of that you're already paying for through your member dues. Last, but certainly not least, and something I don't want to gloss over, is the fact that there's no consumer or public access. RPR is entirely for the use of Realtor members. Now, many of you are wondering, well, what's included in this database? You've already said that you're a parcel database, so we know that there are over 170 million parcels within this platform. But what type of data is integrated into these records? Well, there are tax records, mortgage data, deeds. We have the largest database of distressed properties across the country, billions of photos and valuations as well. And it's with all of this data that the user primarily facilitates three functions: search and research, again, for all of any parcel property within the country. He uses this data to evaluate properties, and we've got proprietary valuation tools, and then also generate reports. We have a suite of reports, I think 8 or 9 different reports that agents use to provide research and provide information to both buyers and sellers and prospects. And I like to think of reports as objection handling tools, and we'll touch on that as well. So now, from a national perspective, over 94% of realtors across the country have what we refer to as integrated data, integrated MLS data. That means that 94% of all of NAR's membership, and there are almost, I want to say the most recent number is 1.4 million, or nearly 1.4 million, belong to an MLS that has partnered with RPR. And when an MLS partners with RPR, they feed or integrate their MLS data into the platform. So it's one of hundreds of sources of data. So over 1.3 million realtors have full access to the R application, as well as full access to their MLS data within the platform. Bear with me one moment, please. I apologize for that. Apparently my 9-year-old learned how to pick the lock of my office door and thought she was going to get things off of the printer. So, all right, back to RPR market partners. 94% of realtors across the country. Um, and I think another impressive statistic is that RPR has 95% of all residential listings in the platform. This is across the country. Now, having said that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have access to MLS data for all of those MLSs. However, some MLSs do choose to share their data with realtors from other markets. So how that impacts your individual market, we are more than happy to answer those questions. Or you can actually check within your account who is sharing with your MLS. Those of you that work across multiple MLSs, as long as your profiles indicate that you are members of multiple MLSs, you'll see all of that data within one account. You don't need to have multiple accounts. Now, as we get into features and tools and data sets of RPR, the lists go on and on. There's so much information. There's not going to be enough time in an hour, let alone a day, to focus on all of the data sets within RPR. But as I mentioned, there are hundreds of them. The one thing that I really do want to touch on before we jump into how RPR benefits your agents is the notion of AVM versus RVM. And this is incredibly important before we get started. And I think incredibly important for you to be able to address any concerns that you might be hearing from your agents. Every property within the RPR database has a valuation, okay? It has an estimated value prominently displayed on that property. And the question is always, well, where did that value come from? Well, just like many public-facing websites out there that have valuations, RPR has those valuations too. But the difference is whether or not it's an AVM versus an RVM. So AVM stands for Automated Valuation Model. Automated valuation models, such as the Zestimate or most valuations that you're going to find on a consumer-facing site, are only using public record data to arrive at an estimate. It's a computerized algorithm that takes that public record data and based on the number of variables, puts in outputs of value that may be near what the true value of that property is. RPR has a proprietary algorithm that we refer to as the RVM, which is the Realtor Valuation Model. The key difference between the Realtor Valuation Model and most AVMs is that the Realtor Valuation Model uses public record data and MLS data to arrive at values. And what do we know about MLS data? Well, it's the data that you and I as realtors rely upon. It's data that is updated multiple times a day. It's touched and controlled by us, so it's more current, it's more consistent, right? It's up to date. And this is really where there's a lot of shortfalls or pitfalls with public record data. So having that MLS data from 95% of MLSs is critical at being able to arrive at more accurate estimates of value. Now, at the end of the day, again, remember, every property within RPR is going to have this valuation. There's going to be a confidence score on how confident we are that if that property were to sell today, that's what the value would be. And we're tracking these estimates of value over time as well. The general premise of having this value in RPR is to help your agents better price properties and to have pricing discussions. It's not to say with a degree of accuracy what the property is going to sell for. It's so that your agents can have important pricing discussions with those buyers and sellers, and that they have the tools to refine values so that it is pertinent and relevant to each individual property. It gives the realtor the ability to be subjective now to their knowledge of the property and the market to help that seller or even help that buyer arrive at a true value. Getting started with RPR is easy. Whether it's you creating your account or your agents creating their accounts, it's very easy to do so. You simply visit www.narrpr.com. Right from our homepage, you click Create New Account. It will prompt you to enter your NERDS number, and then it will prompt you to enter your MLS ID. These two pieces of information are critical from a rules standpoint, and it enables us to kind of turn the light switch on to give you access to the data that you are allowed to have access to, the data that you pay to access with your member dues, both nationally and locally. Okay. For those of you that are new to RPR, I do have a kind of a quick tip. Pull out your mobile devices or jot down, make a quick note that if you send a text to 555-888, in the body of the text, just type the word new, you'll get an autoresponder text back with some getting started tips that would be great for you to share with your agents. So again, that's 555-888. Just send a text with the word new in the body of the text, and we'll send you an autoresponder text back with some quick tip resources to getting started with RPR. So let's transition now and talk about how RPR helps agents. Okay, how does RPR help agents? And we're going to go through this fairly quick. And again, my objective is to keep this high level on really just, again, the high notes and starting with RPR searches. We talked about how agents will use RPR to search and research. So from a search standpoint, the search begins right at our homepage. Once an agent is signed into their accounts, right from our main page, notice that there are multiple search categories. We have all properties, for sale, for lease, neighborhoods, schools, market activity. You could search the entire RPR platform, which with over 170 million parcels, or if you're specifically working with a buyer and you just want to search local MLS data, that data has been fed from your MLS, just click for sale, and that will narrow down the database, right? So just think about these different tabs as being subsets of data to search, just for just to help things be a little bit easier, to create more efficient searches. So I just want to search. So I'm going to pretend that I'm a realtor in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I want to see the parcels. I want to return properties in Scottsdale in zip code 85254. So I've just typed into this search field, Scottsdale, Arizona, and the zip code. And then I'm going to click search. Now look what happens. It returns 18,715 properties. That doesn't necessarily mean that there are 18,000 properties for sale. Excuse me. I had searched under all properties and it returned all parcels within that zip code. If I want to search for just properties that are for sale, I'm just going to rerun that same search under the for sale tab. Click search and notice that now returns 280 properties. That's much easier to swallow, right? Now notice that these results are displayed in a list view. I could also view them in a map view by clicking the map view link here or tab at the top of the page, or I could click bigger map and view the results in a map as well. Now, maybe we want to refine our search criteria and only identify parcels within this zip code that are distressed. And being distressed means that there's been some formal action taken against this property. It might mean that a Liz pendants was filed. It might mean that that property is already bank owned. So there's, again, a formal action against the property that needs to be filed. So we're going to enter our search area. I'm going to come down to the show section, and I'm going to uncheck non-distressed. I only want distressed properties returned in my result. Now I'm going to click search. You'll notice that I have 43 properties that are returned. If I wanted to know how many of them were not currently listed, I could uncheck active and pending off to the left-hand side, apply that to my search, and return that. So think about that from a prospecting standpoint. If we had 43 properties that are in distress, maybe we identified that only 13 of them are listed, that would leave us with a balance of 30 homeowners that might be sitting on the sideline wondering what to do, thinking about potentially listing their property, that we could maybe send a postcard to, or go knocking at their door, or if their phone numbers are provided through public records, even make a phone call to them. So lots of different ways that you can use this data. Now, I mentioned that you can enlarge the map and see the search results in a map. There are also a number of mapping tools that will help you maybe refine your searches or identify the correct search results based on perhaps a buyer's individual needs. So mapping tools are found above the maps. You have the ability to draw shapes. Maybe you want to run a radius search or draw a polygon to really get very specific about the area that's being searched. So you can draw shapes. You can run what we call drive time or distance searches. So using a map pin, it's the second option here, using map pins. You can select drive time or distance. Maybe you're working with a buyer that's a doctor. The doctor works at a hospital and needs to be within a 10-minute drive of this hospital. You could drop a pin or plug in the address of where the hospital is located. Choose a 10-minute drive time search. You can even narrow that down by day of week and time of day. And the system will not only identify which areas are within that 10-minute drive, you can then choose to search within those areas and refine the search results. Same thing with distance. You can search custom areas, and you can create your own custom areas and save them. And then finally, show geographies. The show geography feature is it resembles more of how we would search within the MLS. So unlike the MLS, you would have your map, and under the show geographies pick list, you'd pull that down and it would show various types of geographies by boundaries. You might have neighborhoods, cities, zip codes, census block groups, schools, and then even further broken down, schools K through 5 or 6 through 8 or high school, and be able to, when making that selection, see the boundaries appear within the map, then click into the map to search those areas or even run various reports for those areas. So take a look at the mapping tools. They're very, very sophisticated. In addition to those mapping functions above the map, the bottom right-hand corner of every map, we have heat maps. If you've never worked with a heat map is a graphical representation of changing data. We've loaded about a dozen different heat maps that, when selected, overlays the graphic, overlays color scheme into whatever map you had selected, and you can see the variation. So the one that we're looking at right here is a 12-month change in estimated value. Remember, I mentioned earlier that we're tracking estimated values over time. So if you want to see The 12-month change in estimated value, you just select that heat map. It overlays into the map that you had selected, that you had up on your screen. And you can see those that are the areas that are in darker red are areas that have had a decrease in value. Those areas that are in blue have an increase in value. And this might be a great buyer tool to show a buyer, maybe especially an investor, that says, hey, I want to focus on areas that have been hit the hardest. Now, an application, maybe you're working with that investor. Obviously, if your investor said, I want to focus on Scottsdale, Arizona at this zip code, and the zip code that's represented in this boundary is shaded primarily in blue, that shows that values are increasing. Maybe you want to augment that search, use your mapping tools to hone in on some of the areas that are in darker red. So there's lots of different ways that you can use these heat maps. Here are some additional examples of heat maps: estimated home values up here, flood zones, year built, and again, that 12-month change and estimated value. So again, every page within RPR is going to have the ability for you to enlarge a map and look at a map area. You can look at map areas all across the country, and every map is going to have heat map overlays. Now, let's switch gears just a little bit and say we are preparing for a listing presentation. I would encourage you to have all of your agents, whenever they are going out on a listing presentation, they have a conversation with somebody that says they're thinking about selling or just curious about market activity, to log into RPR, go to the All Properties tab, and enter that address. And you can do this again for all 170 million parcels across the country. You type in the address and click search. That is going to return the property record for that property. And notice across the top of the page, we have a series of tabs. I'm going to quickly move through these tabs just to show you the breadth of data that exists within RPR. And remember this data, where it's coming from. It's hundreds of sources of data that have been integrated at the parcel level. So for the 17238 North 56th Place in Scottsdale, Arizona, we're going to go through the summary tab in just a moment so you can start seeing all the data. But first, I just mentioned that every page within RPR has a map. Notice that we have a map and we can see where this parcel, where this property is located. We can click on bigger map, expand the map. Notice above the map, we have those mapping tools. In the bottom right, we have those heat maps. We have a map legend that shows us what all of these color-coded houses around our subject property mean. So those properties that are in blue are either for sale, or navy blue mean that they're pending. Those that are green have been recent sales. So if you just want a real quick view and look at a neighborhood and see which properties have recently sold, this is one way that you can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse that map. And let's start looking at the summary page. Remember, I said every property has an RVM, a Realtor Valuation Model. We can see that this property's current RVM, and these are updated monthly, is $500,000. We could click on this link, view details, to see specifically which properties were used to arrive at this value. We have some basic facts about the property. This is data that's coming from public records. We have some additional data about the RVM. We have an estimate range. We have a confidence score. Now, this is a 5-star confidence score. That means that at 5 out of 5, it's a very high rating. That's how confident we are that if this property were to sell today, it would sell plus or minus 10% of this current RVM. We can see some change in the last month or last 12 months. I mean, how impressive would it be if you walked into a listing presentation and were able to just tell the seller, Mr. Seller, I track and analyze values and estimates for properties within your neighborhood on a daily basis. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that properties in the last month, that your specific property, based on the properties in the month, has actually decreased about $4,680, or in the last 12 months, overall, there's been a 3.33% increase. Even though you read that information right off of a page, it makes, by using that data in your communication, it just makes you look that much more impressive, is probably a good word. I'm going to scroll down. We can see that we have a Google Street View here. If the property had been listed within the last 2 years, you'd be seeing the primary photo from the MLS. We have some historical records for the property off to the side. We have some neighborhood data and how it compares to other neighborhoods. We have the ability to add property notes. We have homeowner facts. We have this section that's called home facts. And notice here that we have public facts. We also have a column which enables you to add or change some of this data. So remember, this data, public records was missing bedroom count. This is very, very common in a lot of markets across the country. But if we know that this is a 4-bedroom, we can go ahead and input the number 4 into the Your Changes column, click Save, and now this property will always reflect that it's a 4-bedroom in our account. We have median estimated home value charts. We have interior details, exterior details, location details. Now remember, this data, if this was a listed property, it would have much greater data integrated here for a more robust picture. We have school data, we have legal description, we have mortgage records, tax information, deeds records, and this just goes on, but we're simply on that summary tab. Once we move over to the history tab, now we're looking at some histograms about sales and financing activity, prior sales transactions. We can look at both public records and listing records, and we can scroll year by year or transaction by transaction. Same thing with tax assessment information, mortgage records, so on. A good example of this, my father recently purchased a property and had asked me to look into the history of the property. By looking at the history of the property, I was able to identify that the current property owners had purchased the property 5 years earlier as a foreclosure. So having that information here, I was able to share that with my father, who was able to ask the other realtor for a complete list of all of the enhancements or updates that they made to the property. And it turns out that it really didn't need a lot of work in the last 5 years. So think about how that maybe affected the sale. Okay, let's move on to the charts tab, which is just a wealth of charts and graphs, maybe median estimated home value versus listing value, listing price, sales price versus sales volume. The list goes on and on. This is, again, data that's been aggregated at the geography, at whether it's a zip code or whether it's a geography that you've selected, and is able to report that data so that you can not only research the neighborhood, but you can share this data with your customers. We're going to move on to the refined value tab. I think this is one of the most what's the word I'm looking for? This is one of the most valued features within the RPR platform, especially as it relates to using RPR from a valuation standpoint. Remember, every property has an RVM, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's taking into consideration the local market or specific features of that individual property. So that's why we have 4 tools to refine the value so that it becomes a more powerful tool when presenting to buyers and sellers. The first way that you can refine value is by adjusting basic facts. Okay, remember we're missing a bedroom count. We added in a bedroom count. As soon as we click apply changes, that might have an impact on value. And in this particular case, it increased the value over $21,000. Second tool is to refine based on home improvements. Maybe this homeowner put a brand new upscale kitchen into the property a couple years ago. Well, we definitely want to pull out that value as well, or make sure that impacts the estimated value for this property. We have loaded 3 dozen of the most common home improvements. This data comes from a provider called Hanley Wood. They're the publishers of Remodeler magazine. For example, You can see this pick list. Let's go ahead and select a minor kitchen remodel that was completed April of 2013. At the time, that improvement was $15,000. Once we click add, that's going to give us today's depreciated value for that home improvement. In this case, it increases that value nearly $9,000. Now, same goes for needed improvements. My husband and I bought a new home a couple years ago. As soon as we looked at the house, fell in love with the house, the realtor told us, oh yeah, it needs a new roof, and the homeowners, the sellers, aren't willing to put a new roof on. So right away, we had to factor that into what our offer price was going to be. So in this case, we've added new patio. New patio would be about $7,000. We click add, and that subtracts that value from our estimated value. And then the last tool here is to refine based on market and home conditions. And this is where it's incredibly important for the realtor to come in and make these adjustments, because only they know, they're intimately knowledgeable about the property or the local market. A computer doesn't necessarily know that it has the nicest, best curb appeal for the neighborhood. So you'd simply go condition by condition, use your sliders to move it up or down, right? And that will give you a refined value. So whether you're using 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these refinement tools, it takes all of those refinements, it associates that with the initial estimated value, and it arrives at a refined estimate. So with this particular property, we went from $500,000 and increased the value $26,661. So that's a big, big enhancement. But this is a great way to be able to show that seller, in this case, a potential seller, not only how their individual property features impact value, but shows what type of evaluation the realtor was involved in to really help and consult on pricing. In addition to this refined value tool, we have CMA programs. And I think this is one area where we can really help brokerages save money, especially if you're paying for products maybe like Cloud CMA or other CMA programs out there that are charging on a licensed basis. We have 2 different CMAs within the RPR platform. One is a kind of a quick and out the door approach, and the other is a sales comparison analysis, which is much more detailed and utilized by appraisers. The key difference is that the sales comparison analysis enables you to go in and make manual adjustments for each improvement of the property, whereas the comparative analysis is just much broader, and while it does allow you to make those adjustments, it's a broader analysis of them. So let's quickly walk through, and since majority of realtors use the comparative analysis approach, that's what I'm going to walk through here. It simply walks you through 4 simple steps. First step is to confirm the facts of the property. It shows that public record data side by side with any listing data. And then of course the your changes column. You're gonna make any changes here, click save. That moves you on to step number 2 to find comps. So you click the find comps button. Notice that it has a map and it has some pre-selected criteria here. Also notice that if you already know which properties that you want to include as comps, you can just check add a known property and you can enter the address or the MLS ID and retrieve the comps that way. But for purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to use the search functionality within a map. I'm going to perform my search. I'm going to see the results in the map view. And then within the map view, I can either click on those comps in the map, or I can view them in a list view below the map. And I'm simply going to check which ones I want to include in my CMA. I can click through each individual property open it in a separate window and view the details of those properties. Notice some of these, the search results have blue stars. All the blue star means is that those properties were used in the RVM to arrive at an estimated value. So we're going to make our selection, update valuation. Now we're going to make our adjustments. Third step, we're going to see the comps that we selected side by side with the subject property. We're going to indicate which are better or worse. Now we have an average of our comps. We have an estimate. We have we've made our adjustments. We have a comp analysis. And from here, we can still refine those numbers and make those changes. The fifth and final step is optional. It enables you to produce a seller's report. Now, a seller's report is one of several reports that are available, but the seller's report would be almost like a presentation that you share with a potential seller as either something that you'd send in advance of a listing presentation or a leave behind after. All reports are customizable. So if there's some particular piece of data that you don't want included, you just uncheck it. You run that report. You can download the report or you can email the report, and now you have a nice presentation to share with that potential seller. Another report that I want to draw attention to is a neighborhood report. These are incredibly valued to be able to show demographics and quality of life data, all kinds of data about neighborhoods in particular. These are great to use at open houses and especially during right now, when many of us are not holding open houses, or maybe we're holding virtual open houses. The more resources that you can make available to buyers that are still in the midst of their searches, still in the midst of finding properties, the more resources you can make available to them virtually, the better. So just to show you an example of a neighborhood search in RPR, remember there is a tab for neighborhoods. You can search for neighborhoods using your map features, or just by typing into this form field, I'm looking for High Meadow in Illinois. And when I return that neighborhood, I have a layout that's very similar to a property report with several tabs across the top. I can also produce a neighborhood report that's very sophisticated. Again, this is something that you might want to generate and send to a potential buyer or put out there on a virtual environment so that buyers can peruse specific neighborhood specifics about the property. You know, I mentioned earlier that agents will use RPR to search and research, to evaluate properties and produce reports. These are very tangible reports. It's one of the top features of RPR. Agents or users create more than 3 million reports a year. They're all customizable. They can be downloaded, printed, or emailed, as I mentioned. They're available and stored within accounts for 30 days, and custom content can be added by the brokerage as well as the agent. We'll talk more about this in just a couple minutes. I want to take the next 5 minutes to talk about RPR Mobile. This is the fastest growing component of RPR. There have been over 470,000 mobile installs to RPR Mobile. Remember, I said that it was fully accessible. The entire database was fully accessible, but there's also features and components that are only available within the RPR platform. So once you download it, whether it's from mobile, the App Store or Google Play, this is what the icon looks like on your mobile device, whether it's a smartphone or tablet or an iPad. There are quick links if you click and hold the icon, or you can just open up the mobile app. There are 3 different default home screens. It defaults to a 1 mile radius of where you're located, but you can adjust all the settings. You either have kind of a market snapshot, you have search screen, or you have market conditions, and then you can click into the various data for more information. So let's just say that I'm working with a buyer. we're out in the field looking at properties. I know that sounds like seems like a foreign concept, at least right now. We probably haven't done that in a few weeks. I clicked on the 26. I can see the 26 properties that are around where we're located. I can zoom in, hone in more. I can refine the search. I can maybe even want to take a look at the schools and see where their nearby schools are and click on the individual schools and run school reports. Or I can look at the parcels and I can check out different views, overhead view versus street view. Well, look at this one that's in green. This is a recent sale. The one in gray, these are properties, these are estimated values for off-market properties. The blue are those that are currently listed. And again, there's a legend on every page. Let's go ahead and click into one of these properties that's for sale. Maybe we're standing in front of this property and it wasn't one that we had planned on showing for the day. And the buyer's like, well, let's look at that one. What do you know about that property? Just pull up the property, click on it, open up the property details within your mobile device. You can look at all the photos. You can change it from a 4-up display to a single photo view, and just start scrolling down through the page to look at all the data. You're going to be amazed at how it resembles the data that we just walked through in the desktop version. We have the RVM and the confidence score. We have listing details. We have additional tools. Maybe we want to call the agent and see if it's available for showing at the last minute. We have a description about the property. We have a map. Now notice this map. This is one of my favorite features. Let's say you just showed this property and the buyer says, you know what, I really like this neighborhood. I like this area. I'm not 100% sold on this property, or I'd like to see more properties that are for sale around here. Go ahead and pull up your app, click on nearby for sale, and run a real quick search to see what else is for sale. Maybe the buyer's in love with the property and starts asking leading questions about what have other properties around here sold for. Go ahead and click nearby comps. Or finally, maybe they want to know, they're starting to think about what type of offer to make. Go ahead and click create comp analysis and start your CMA right then and there. I will tell you that if you ever, in today's day and age, have to say to a buyer, let me look into that and get back to you, I guarantee by the time you get back to them, they will have started the research on their own, and now you have different objections that you're going to have to overcome. Let's just scroll down and again, look at all the data and how it mirrors the data that's available through the mobile platform. It's all available at your fingertips. Prior sales transactions, school data, interior features, exterior features, mortgage records, deeds, tax information, distressed properties, et cetera, et cetera. Now, at the bottom of the page, notice the button that says reports. Just like you can run various reports in the desktop version, you can run reports right from your mobile. You can download them to your mobile device. You can share them electronically, meaning you could send them via text. You could share them to social media. You can generate reports and use them right then and there while you're out in the field with buyers and sellers. And these become very, very powerful tools once they're at your fingertips. So let me just check in to see if we have any questions. Give me just one moment. I don't see that we have any questions that have come in. So we're going to switch gears and we are going to talk about RPR broker toolset. These are the tools available for brokers. And we want to make sure that all of you are taking advantage of for your companies. As I mentioned at the beginning, there's no cost associated with these. This is a member benefit, and this is something that is going to benefit the company as a whole. There are 4 primary components of broker tools. They're all elective. It's entirely up to you what is going to fit for your business. So the first component is branding. I think this is critical for every brokerage, whether your agents are logging into RPR, for them to be reminded of the brand, of the company, of the value that you bring to the table. But I think even more important is that any of the reports that are generated are going to be branded to the company as well. So the last thing you want is for your agents to be out there giving buyers and sellers these beautiful presentations that are branded to RPR as opposed to their individual company. So that's first. Second, with branding is the ability for you, the company, to upload and include content, custom content about your brokerage that would appear within those reports. We can turn this on for the brokerage. We just need to identify someone within the company that acts as broker admin, and then they have the ability to add that content. The second broker tool is affiliated service module. We know most of you have relationships, if not own companies such as mortgage and title and home warranty, or maybe you have a concierge service. These are services that you want to remind, I apologize. You want to remind your agents to take advantage of. So we have the ability for you to present or display modules for those services within the RPR application. These appear within the search result pages and the property detail pages. And they also appear within the reports as well on the very last page of all the reports that are generated. So there's some consumer exposure. The third component is what we refer to as the market data tool. This is performance analytics. Remember, we're getting data feeds from all of the MLSs that you participate in. We are then able to take that data and report back to you through 30 different metrics and hundreds of charts and graphs, not only how your company is performing, but how the market is performing, how your company is performing against the market. So you have the ability to run market share reports, things like that, and access all of this performance data. This is another area where we might be able to save you money from other programs that you might be paying for, or even simplify and just create greater efficiencies. I know one of the most valued features of the market data tool is that it rolls across all MLSs that you participate in. So that might be a game changer, especially for those of you that work across multiple MLSs. The last component of broker tools, before we wrap this up, is what we refer to as the broker AVM. This is a consumer-friendly version of our valuation tool, of the RVM. Here's an example of how one brokerage called Iron Gate Realtors has implemented this widget into their site. They have a feature right from their homepage that asks the website visitors, what is your home worth? And the visitor enters the address, clicks what's my home worth, and the widget delivers a result. So this is content that you can add to your consumer-facing website that gives visitors the ability to interact and learn more about valuation. Now, keep in mind that this is an AVM, it's not an RVM. The key difference is that we're only using public record data. It is all we are permitted to use for public consumption. So the values here might differ from the values within the RPR platform. But again, remember the focus is different. One is available for consumers, the other is for your agents to really help consumers value property. So I'm seeing a lot of brokerages using this, not only from an education standpoint, but as a way to generate leads and encourage those website visitors to work with a realtor to truly help them value properties. So those are the 4 components of broker tools. It is easy to get started. For brokers, owners, and managers, you're simply going to visit our blog at blog.narrpr.com. Once you get to our blog, there are 2 simple steps that you're going to take to enroll in broker tools. So here's our blog. You're going to hover your mouse over industry segments. Under the broker owner section, you're going to click Get Started with the Broker Toolset. Once you click that link, you're going to be prompted to complete a simple online form. Okay, you're going to, and this is the most important thing here, you're going to download a spreadsheet. You're going to complete that spreadsheet, save your spreadsheet, and then upload that spreadsheet along with your company logo and click Submit. We'll receive it on our end. We will then set your brokerage up with broker tools and the various components that you have requested, and you make those selections within this spreadsheet. The process seems a little daunting at first, but I promise you it is super easy and simple. And if you need any assistance, we are here to help you. Now, while you're at the blog, take a look around at the training resources and additional resources that are available to you and your associates. One thing that I really want to point out under the training is the sales meeting modules that are specifically designed for broker owners and managers to use during sales meetings. So if you're hosting virtual sales meetings now with your agents, maybe your next lesson will want to be on, you'll want it to be on RPR, and you would share a short video of getting started with RPR. So anything that you need to be successful and be positioned as the RPR expert for your office, we've thought of and we have made available to you. So on that note, I'm going to again check to see if we have any questions. We have a few minutes available. I know that we have covered a lot of ground today, and I appreciate you all sticking with me today. I know it's again, we all have a lot going on in our world. In just the last hour, we've heard a child break into my office. We've heard my dog barking at somebody at the door in the background. I know that you all have had to deal with those interruptions as well. So we've recorded this session. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And I'm going to stay on the line to answer any questions that are that you all have in real time. If you have to hop off, remember to visit our blog, Enroll in Brokered Tools. And we also have a live help desk available 24/7, 365 days a year. They're wonderful. Of course, they're all working remote now, but they have been up and running without any hiccups, being able to service our brokerage and realtor community. Not only that, they facilitate live support for all of NAR. So I'm sure many of you have probably called in and dealt with our associates before. They are wonderful. So again, let's see if we have any questions. I don't see any questions.